Okay, well, I actually respect that because you're actually providing proof that the Big Bang is accurate and correct. Unlike DPR Jones, who just blabbers on and just uses profanity and all this kind of hate and word games and word riddles and all this kind of junk that doesn't mean anything.
Well, I'm not going to comment on DPR Jones' technique. I know that DPR Jones argues in a different field related in particular to the Bible. I'm more interested in the science of the universe as we see it and whether or not it can actually support anything from an account in the Bible. I happen to believe that nothing in the Bible, no supernatural event, can be supported scientifically, and I also happen to believe that scientific apologetics for the Bible is rather untenable, rather fallacious way to actually go about arguing for the existence of God, because when you look at the kind of thing that NephilimFree does, well, NephilimFree takes a situation like a global flood, and he tries to explain it in terms of science, and he tries to make it look like a natural disaster. But actually, it would be easier to just say that God snapped his fingers and the world was flooded. Why bother trying to make it look like a natural disaster when you're just going to put God in at the start anyway? There's no point in attempting to make it look scientific when it actually isn't, if God is there at the beginning. And so this scientific apologetics I find quite objectionable. And the reason for that is that quite often it takes the work of scientists, often generations of scientists over the last perhaps 200, 300, 400 years since the times of Galileo, and it distorts that work. And we've seen recently in a video by NephilimFree, which is the subject of my next video on YouTube, that he has taken the work of scientists from the 1970s and distorted that work in order to make it look as though we are at the center of the universe, when 30 years of research following, 40 years in fact now that we're past a decade, have actually refuted everything that he's said. But he continues to use this claim, even though there is 40 years of research proving him wrong. And so he is cherry-picking from science.
Okay, so NephilimFree thinks that the Earth is the center of the universe. He thinks, really? Really?
Yes, he believes that the Earth is the center of the universe. He also believes that the Earth does not move and does not rotate. He is what we call a geocentrist. So he believes that the sun and the entire universe go around the Earth once a day. He's made several videos expressing this claim explicitly, and I also have a video on my channel called A Challenge to a Geocentrist, where you can find some of NephilimFree's clips. Yeah.
Really?
But if you don't believe me, please message him and ask him. I'm sure he will tell you. Just ask him, are you a geocentrist? Or ask him, do you believe that the Earth rotates? Because he does not believe that the Earth rotates. He believes that the Earth is fixed and the universe rotates around it. Now, obviously, there are various problems.
His latest video about that subject, whether it's still up or not, I don't know, actually says that he does have doubts about whether the Earth is the center of the universe, but he maintains that the Milky Way is the center of the universe, and he uses the quantum redshift argument to justify that. So he's changed his position, I think, over geocentrism.
Right. I never saw an actual retraction for him on his earlier claim about the photography of the stars, but
whether that video is still up, I don't know. If it is, I'll link it to you. I'll put it.
Okay, I would be interested to see it. But I do have a video from him, which I believe he's removed, which is one that I want to include clips of in my next video, because I don't know why he's removed it, unless he's just decided that it was completely wrong. He could at least have had the good grace to apologize and say that he was wrong.
Okay.
So it would appear that, contrary to NephilimFree's claim that the Milky Way, the galaxy that we inhabit, is at the center of the universe, it would appear that, in fact, there is no center to the universe. There is no special location in the universe. I don't mean that in terms of the Earth being special because there's life on it. I mean there is no preferred place in the universe, that you could go anywhere in the universe and it would look the same, roughly, as it did in another place. You would see galaxies all around you, randomly scattered, randomly clustered together, and this is the fundamental assumption of cosmology which leads us to the Big Bang Theory. So it's an important one. We have to test it on a regular basis, and it is tested many times every year, and it continues to remain true, according to observational evidence. So following up on that, TC, I would like to know if you have any further objections to the Big Bang model.
Yes, I do. many cosmological evolutionists say that the Big Bang was a spinning disk spinning round and round in a clockwise motion, so spinning round and round like a disk in a clockwise motion, and somehow this disk just expanded and created the universe. Well, the law of angular momentum actually contradicts with this. The laws of angular momentum say that if you have a disk spinning in a particular direction, let's say clockwise, then that disk will keep on spinning clockwise unless it's interrupted by another force. So that disk, which is in this case the singularity, which is a disk spinning clockwise and spinning and spinning and spinning, and it decided to expand at one point and then create the universe. But the problem with the Big Bang is that if the Big Bang was true and this did happen, then all of the planets, all of the galaxies, everything would be spinning in the same direction because of the law of angular momentum. So,
okay.
So the Big Bang
do you want me to address that?
Okay.
Okay, well, this claim actually originates with Kent Hovind. Kent Hovind made a series of lectures, and one of the claims...
Yes, actually, I watched one of Kent Hovind's videos, and this is where I got the information from. So I'm not saying that I'm right. He may be wrong, okay, but I'm not saying that I'm right.
Okay. Well, I'll explain to you why he is wrong. I actually used this little clip of Kent Hovind in my first ever popular YouTube video, Creation Astronomy Propaganda Debunked 01. It was the first video that got me popular on YouTube, and I actually used this very clip of Kent Hovind saying that everything ought to be spinning the same way. Now, the first thing I want to raise is that earlier in this conversation you said that a singularity was a point, or that the Big Bang predicted that there was a singularity at the beginning of time and it was a point. But when you were describing this scenario to me, you said that the singularity was a disk spinning round. Now, do you think that a singularity is a point or a disk?
I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Well, let me continue. This notion that there was a disk rotating actually comes from Kent Hovind misreading a science textbook on astronomy. Now, this is quite distressing to someone like myself as a professional science educator. It's distressing to see that someone like Kent Hovind, who claims to have taught science in schools for 15 years, is incapable of spotting the error in his reading. The actual context of this rotating disk is the formation of a solar system, not the formation of the universe. Solar systems form from clouds of dust which swirl around newborn stars, and they flatten out into disks. And the reason they flatten out is because they're spinning round, and the stuff that's around the edges spins faster, and so it's able to resist the gravitational attraction of the star, the center, but the stuff that's at the top, at the poles, if you like, of this ball of material, falls towards the center and joins with the disk. So they flatten themselves out into disks. Now, Kent Hovind has read somewhere in a science textbook that this is what astronomers believe happens around the formation of a solar system, and he has misread solar system to mean universe. And so he has stated that therefore the universe must have come from a spinning object. This actually isn't true. Even if the universe were rotating and it had some intrinsic angular momentum and it began to expand, and as it expanded the elements began to condense out, hydrogen and helium formed into clouds, dark matter clustered together, and then the hydrogen and helium was clinging to this dark matter where it began to form into stars and galaxies. Well, there's nothing in physics that permits or that forbids all of these things to begin rotating in different directions. In fact, it demands that they do. Because if you have a cloud of gas, what happens is it begins to collapse, and then inside of it, more collapses occur. And we call this process fragmentation. And when fragmentation occurs, it means that this cloud of gas sort of becomes a bit like a Swiss cheese. It develops lots of little bubbles of emptiness inside where stars begin to form from minor collapses of clouds of gas. And we can actually see this occurring out in nebulae in our own galaxy, which is very fascinating, and there's some beautiful images of that. What happens when this material fragments is that the products of inertia, or rather the inertia of any given system fragmenting within this cloud, changes. And when the inertia of a system changes, it actually permits the angular momentum vector, which decides which way the system is spinning, to change as well. It can actually topple over completely. And it's for this reason that we can have planets spinning in different directions. It's for this reason that galaxies are orientated in different directions, and actually we expect them to be. If the Big Bang Theory is true, we expect galaxies to be facing in all different directions. Basically, what I'm trying to explain to you is that this claim that as you put it, cosmological evolutionists. I would just call them cosmologists because they study large-scale structure. But this claim that cosmological evolutionists believe that the universe formed from a spinning disk simply isn't true. And the origin of that claim is with Kent Hovind, and the reason he's made that claim is because he misread a science textbook. And it's a bit sad because he's gone a very long way with it, and now people like yourself are also making this claim because Kent Hovind said it, but actually it all comes from just a complete misreading of a very simple chapter. So it comes from a very simple mistake, but it's expanded it to become a big problem for people like me because I have to sort of correct people and explain what's really going on here.
Well, thanks for that actually, because I've been believing in Kent Hovind for a long time, and I've been trusting a lot of his content. But now that you've explained to me why he's a liar and he's really dishonest, it's really made me think about him.